What's going on, guys? Today we're talking about the special right triangle, and there are two types, okay? The first type is the 45, 45, 90 right triangle, and that comes from a right triangle that has 45 and 45 as the two angles in there. And if you guys really notice, that comes actually from cutting a cutting a square in half. Okay, so if you have a square, you all the angles are 90 and you cut it in half, each angle would be 45. Okay, and what do you know about a square? Well, the sides are congruent. So whatever this side is, say it's x, this side also has to be x. Okay, and as it turns out, the hypotenuse of that triangle is going to be whatever the side is multiplied by radical 2. So it's x times radical 2. Okay, so the things you guys have to remember or memorize is that the side is equal to the side, but the side times radical 2 gives you the hypotenuse. Okay, keep that in mind as we do some examples. Okay, so I'm going to try an example and keep that on there. So all this here should be in your notes. Okay, you should have copied this down, but I'm going to leave it on there just for the first example. Here I have a triangle that is 90 and 45, 45. If they tell me that this side is going to be 10, can you find x and y? Well, this is the side where you have one side, and side has to be equal to side. So I know x has to be 10 also. Now to go from x to y, or go from this side to y, I know that side times radical 2, this one right here, side times radical 2 is equal to the hypotenuse. So now I have 10 times radical 2 is equal to y, which, you can just put that together. 10 radical 2 is equal to y. Okay, let's try another example where they give you the hypotenuse instead. So they give you this to be 10, and you're looking for x and y. Now remember, side times radical 2 gives you hypotenuse. So I have x times radical 2 is equal to 10. If I want x, I have to divide by radical 2. So x comes out to be 10 over radical 2. And if you guys remember, we can't have a radical at the bottom, so we rationalize that by multiplying radical 2 on top and bottom. So that gives you x is equal to 10 times radical 2 is 10 radical 2. At the bottom, you have radical 2 times radical 2. That's the whole point. It gets rid of the radical. It gives you just 2. And then here you have to simplify that. 10 over 2 is 5. So you get x is equal to 5 radical 2. So here you have 5 radical 2. And how do you get y? Well, these two sides are congruent. So y has to also be 5 radical 2. Okay, let's go on to the other type of special right triangle. It's going to be the 30, 60, 90 right triangle. Okay, so it looks like this. All right, here is, in this triangle, the sides are not congruent. Okay, one is going to be short, one is going to be long, and the hypotenuse is over here. This actually comes from the equilateral triangle. And you can see, if you cut that in half, you have like a 30 here and a 60 here. Now just remember that the small angle is opposite of the short side, and the big angle is opposite of the long side. I don't know if you guys can see that. See? And 30 is the short side. 30 is opposite of the short side. Anyways, so the relationship that you guys need to remember is that if you have the short side to be x, the hypotenuse is twice as long. So it's going to be 2 times x. And the long side is x times radical 3. Now, the proof of all this is it's really simple. It comes from the Pythagorean theorem. But at this point, we want to kind of memorize these relationships because we want to do things quickly. Okay? So the relationships comes out to be, if you have the short side, and you always want to start with the short side, it's the easiest that way. Short times 2 equals to hypotenuse. And short times radical 3 equals to the long side. Okay, these are the relationships that you want to remember. Okay, so keep that in mind. Again, all these should be in your notes. Okay, so you can refer back when you do an example. So here I have an example. Oof, wow, look at that. I have this to be, obviously this is the short side, but it should be the opposite of a 30, and the long side is opposite of the 60-degree angle. Now let's say they give you the short side, this to be 5. That's easy enough, right? How do you get the long side and the hypotenuse? Well, short times 2 gives you hypotenuse. So short is the 5. 5 times 2 is equal to y. Y is the hypotenuse. So y comes out to be 10. All right, okay. Y is 10. Now, short side times radical 3 is the long side. X is the long side. So you have 5 times radical 3 equals to x. So you have 5 radical 3 equals x. So x is 5 radical 3. Okay? Let's move on and do another type of example. Oops, example 2 now. If they give you the long side instead, so opposite of 60, they give you this to be 15. And you're looking for x and y. Now start with the relationship where you have short gives you the side that you have. So short times radical 3. So x times radical 3 equals 15. How do you get x? You divide by radical 3. So x is equal to 15 over radical 3. And you have to rationalize that. So you have to multiply top and bottom by radical 3. That gives x is equal to 15 radical 3 over 3. And then you simplify that. X comes out to be 5 radical 3. So 5 radical 3. All right, now if you have x, the short side, how do you get the hypotenuse? Well, short side times 2 gives you the long side. So I have 5 radical 3 times 2 equals to y. That gives you 10 radical 3 equals to y. So that is 10 radical 3. All good? So if they give you the long side, I would solve the short side and then use that to find the hypotenuse. I wouldn't go straight from the long side to the hypotenuse. I think that's harder. Okay? Let's try another. What do you guys think they will give you this time? Yeah, they're going to give you the hypotenuse instead. Okay? Oof. Still can't draw very well on here. But say they give you this to be 18. All right? Now, obviously, this is the short side. This is the long side. So let's find the short side. You always want to find the short side first. So short side, remember, short times what gives you hypotenuse? Short times 2, right? So x times 2 gives you 18. So x comes out to be 9. Oh, that gives you 9. And then how do you get the long side from the short side? Well, short times radical 3 equals to the long side. So you have 9 radical 3 equals to y. All right, that's it.